Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Development Control Committee meeting. Just some housekeeping rules I need to go through and a brief preamble about the business of the committee tonight, and then we'll get started. Fire evacuation procedures. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building as soon as possible through the nearest available exit. There's one behind you in the public gallery, two behind us at the elevated table here. Exit through reception, and we meet in the War Memorial Park. It's really important that we don't just leave. We're in the War Memorial Park so we can make sure everyone's accounted for. Tonight's meeting is being webcast live on the internet and will be available to view on YouTube after the meeting. Just a wee note on mobile phones as well. If you have a mobile phone, as I have, please ensure they're switched off or turned to silent, just in case. That's that with the housekeeping rules. Now, in terms of the business tonight, Development Control Committee is a quasi-judicial committee, so decisions are made based on planning law that's in our local plan and also the National Planning Policy Framework, which was updated a few weeks ago. Therefore, it's not a political meeting. Decisions are made based on legal considerations. To my left are planning officers who are the experts in proceedings in terms of planning policies and their application. To my right is head of legal or deputy head of legal, make sure that we're actually making legal decisions. So they may be unpopular, but they should be legal. Further to my right is the vice chair and the councillors to my right who'll be making decisions in front of you tonight. And I think you can make an analogy basically with sort of like informed jurors making a decision tonight. So, without further ado, we shall go to first business. First item up, apologies and for absence and substitutions. And I've received notification, Councillor Rattigan and Councillor Goderson can't make it tonight. And apart from that, we're a full complement. Next business, declarations of interest. Do I have any declarations of interest? There are none. Urgent matters before us. Have we any? Not been informed of any. Excellent. Minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February. So, any questions on accuracy? Okay, in which case I'll move from the chair. All those in favour that they're accurate, please show. Okay, so I'll get those signed off later. Right, which brings us on to the main item of business of the night, which is applications for us for consideration by the committee. And item 1 is land adjacent to Gore End Road, Bull Hill, Evingar. And if we can have the officer introduced, please.
Thanks, Chair. Item 1 seeks technical details consent for the erection of 4 dwellings with associated parking, turning, landscaping, private amenity space and access following the grant of permission in principle for up to 4 dwellings in November 2021. The site is located adjacent to Gore End Road in Bull Hill. Just to bring to the committee's attention that throughout the consideration of the application, amended plans were submitted which shifted the proposed access slightly further north, along with changes to the proposed dwellings setbacks to facilitate some changes to the driveway layout, and this was to omit development within the root protection area of a tree on adjoining land. There is no update. The application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed within the main agenda. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I don't have any speakers scheduled for tonight for this item. I'll throw it open to the committee. Any questions for officers? Any hands showing there? I see none. Okay, so we'll move on to debate. Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this item has been brought to committee because of the objections, but the objections, as I read them, really apply to the PIP stage, whereas we're now at the TDC stage, so we are where we are. The design of these 4 properties are quite welcome. This is an area where normally you get 5-bedroom, very large houses, even 6 or 8. So this would really accord with the East Woody neighbourhood plan, which specifies it welcomes smaller housing to satisfy what demand there is amongst young and older people. So I'm happy with this approval and would support the officer's recommendation.
Excellent, thank you. So it's been moved, seconded, Councillor Miller. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. If we can have the decision, please.
Thank you. The application has been approved, subject to the conditions listed from page 57 to 62 of the main agenda. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. So moving on, item number 2, land to the east of Dummerdown Lane. If we can have the officer introduced, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to land to the east of Dummerdown Lane. The proposal is for a change of use of the existing barn and site to equestrian purposes and a replacement of a field gate onto Dummerdown Lane. Amendments were received during the application process, and that's been detailed within the committee report. Updates in relation to this application, it's predominantly comments between the Forestry Commission and the applicant. This primarily relates to matters pertaining to restocking notices and felling licences. These wouldn't be considered to be material planning considerations. However, these were noted within the main report and therefore have been included for completeness. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions listed.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't appear to have anybody down to speak in objection, but we've got Dan Roycroft speaking in support. We've got Dan Roycroft in the house. Yeah, if you'd like to come forward.
He's not available.
He's not available. Okay. That's unfortunate then, because we don't have anyone down to speak then. Okay. In which case, I shall throw it open to councillors for questions to officers. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. There was some debate, discussion, I should say, when we went on site, and it was about, and one question I'd like to put to officers, can we confirm that there's sufficient clarity within the conditions that this is to be used for private use and not for use in any commercial sense of the equestrian activities at the site?
Yes, thank you for the question. Condition 6 is quite explicit in terms of the use of the land and existing buildings hereby permitted shall be for private recreational equestrian purposes only and shall not be used for any other purpose, including commercial riding, charitable purposes, breeding, livery or trading purposes.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Being no more questions, I shall throw it open to debate. Councillor Robertson.
I move the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Freeman. Okay, we shall move to vote in that case. Those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous again. If we can have the decision, please.
The application is approved as per officer's recommendations in line with conditions on pages 85 to 86.
Okay, item number 3, Nunnery House, Tunworth Road, Maple Durwell. If we could have the officer introduction, please.
Thank you. Item 3 seeks technical details consent for the conversion of a barn to a dwelling in accordance with permission in principle, which was allowed on appeal in September 2021 at Nunnery House, Maple Durwell. By way of background, a previous application for technical details consent was refused by Development Control Committee in March of 2023, and that application was refused for 3 reasons, which are set out on pages 103 to 104 of the main agenda. In considering the current application, officers consider that the previous reasons for refusals have been addressed and overcome. Just to summarise the changes compared with the previous application, the proposed driveway has been relocated to the north of the existing building, where it was previously proposed to extend the access track to the south. Internal changes have also been made to the conversion to reorientate the frontage of the property to the north elevation, along with the reduction in the number of openings within the southern elevation. And in addition, the applicant has provided a tree survey and tree protection plan, specifically to address the reason for refusal in relation to trees. I would also just like to clarify that the proposal does not include the creation of any new accesses or driveways, and the existing access track is to be extended only to provide a parking and turning area to the immediate north of the existing building. There is no update. The application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed within the agenda.
Excellent, thank you very much. We have somebody down to speak from Maple Durwell Nately Parish Council. Susan Turner, have we got them in the house? Okay, not here. Have we got Zania Muir here to speak? Yeah, Zaina, sorry. Welcome to Development Control. If you'd like to come down, there's some seats to your right there. Just the back row, sorry. Yeah, so if you sit there, and when you're ready, if you push the button on the right, and you'll have 4 minutes to speak. Thank you.
So, in the interest of speed, I'm just going to read out a statement. I'd like to start by making a general point about the overdevelopment of the Maple Durwell Conservation Area. I do actually think it's relevant here, and it's good to take a step back and look at the bigger picture sometimes. There's a real fatigue and disappointment in the village about the constant planning applications for new builds. This one has been going on for 4 years. To be clear, this isn't a not in my backyard scenario. I do recognise, and I'm sure everybody else in the village recognises, that development and change does need to happen. Just for some context, the Maple Durwell Conservation Area is quite small, and within a 4-minute walk of this proposed development, 5 large houses have already been granted permission to be built, all on previously undeveloped land. Now we have this one, and a further one from the same applicant on Nunnery House land. So to clarify my point, we are seeing a real overdevelopment. Already 5 new houses, 2 to be decided. 3 of these 7 are on Nunnery House land. I'm not singling out this for any other reason than the property sits in the heart of the conservation area. If I had come along here with a request to build 5 houses within 400 metres of each other, I'm sure you would rightly have shown me the door. What I ask you is, what is the purpose of the conservation area? The original planning in principle was refused on the grounds of domestication of the conservation area. Another domestic build and all the residential paraphernalia within the open countryside certainly compromise the conservation area. So my next point is actually quite an important one, and it's about the loss of privacy and light pollution. So from what I can see, the analysis of the impact of the build on neighbouring properties appears to have been done by looking at the drawings, which are two-dimensional, and obviously buildings are three-dimensional. This is unhelpful as there are no indications on any of the drawings provided where the position of the houses of the neighbouring properties are in relation to this build. So analysis of the proposed south elevation is relevant, but only to half of the neighbours. It assumes that you are standing directly in front of the property. In this case, that would mean you'd have your back to Wareham View, which is also a new build, not on that map. If you were to progress just a few metres west on Tunworth Road, you will see very clearly that Hillside Cottage, Yew Tree Cottage and Ivy Cottage are all in sight of the west side of the building and not the south. I live in Yew Tree Cottage and have a clear, unrestricted view from my bedroom windows of the whole of the west side. If you take a look at the elevation drawings provided, the west of the property has floor-to-roof glass. It could not be any worse. For the neighbours on this part of Tunworth Road, the light is unbelievable. There will be significant light pollution also into open countryside and also the issue of overlooking. The appeal was originally granted saying that no change could be made that would make the building more noticeable, as at present it is unseen. I would say floor-to-roof glass and subsequent light do not meet these conditions. My final point, very quickly, is about the water supply. Maps indicate that the proposed water supply is via Tunworth Road, which, as we have already seen, is 3 metres below the property. Sitting between the road and the property are trees and the hedgerow, and from what I can make out, these trees were not included in the tree report as they are outside of the property boundary. The hedgerow not only provides screening from the properties to the south, but it is stated as an integral part of the characteristic of the conservation area. I imagine a 3-metre dig and the excavation through the grounds and their roots will compromise their stability.
Could you sum up, thanks,
and the integrity of the conservation area. So to sum up, I really want to make a point about the west elevation is actually in sight of a number of properties. So that really should be considered when looking at what the light pollution and overlooking. And I don't think that that was taken into consideration with all the paperwork.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for your contribution. Sorry, I've got questions I've got.
Is the question to me?
Yes, if you'd like to come back, sorry. Councillor Harris-Sorrell. Sorry about that.
Chair.
Councillor Harris-Sorrell.
So just for a bit of clarity, that's the west elevation at the top, is it?
Yeah.
Correct, in that image. And then are you able to scroll to the map, just so we can try and establish where this lady's house is?
So you see on the left, bottom left corner of the red mark, the two houses that are below the road.
Okay, so you're one of those two, are you?
Yeah.
And that's where you're thinking the
Yeah, I
issue
mean,
is going to be
I'm not
visibility.
thinking, I'm telling you that from those properties you basically can see the whole corner. So you can see you have the view that you have the most of is actually the west. I can see very little of the south.
And do you know if they're going to add any screening to
Well,
that?
it doesn't appear, I mean, there is the hedgerow, which is obviously 3 feet above the road, but the hedgerow is actually quite sparse along that area. So, I mean, if it was a lot thicker, but I mean, I do think that a floor-to-roof glass is going to throw out a hell of a lot of light in any case. So, I think the omission of the fact that, the 3 houses further along the road can actually only see the west elevation is quite a large one.
Do you have any more questions? Okay. Yeah, sorry, Mike. Sorry.
No worries.
Thanks for your contribution.
Oh, sorry.
Do we now have someone from Mapledale and Upnately Parish Council here? Susan Turner. Okay. Would you like to speak next? Welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, if you press the right-hand button, you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Sue Turner. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parish Council. Just to say briefly, this application that follows a PIP granted at appeal, then the withdrawal of the first TDC application, and the refusal of the second by this committee in March last year. And of the 3 reasons for refusal, 2 have been addressed. The Parish Council contends that the third hasn't. This was refusal due to the introduction of openings on the south elevation of the building, which neither preserve nor enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area and have adverse impacts on neighbours. As per the original and current heritage statement, there was to be no change of dynamic between the present barn, at night devoid of artificial light, and Tunworth Road. So at the last DC meeting, when the previous TDC was the previous technical details consent application was refused, a question was raised by councillors as to whether, should the application be approved, the removal of openings in the southern elevation could be dealt with by condition. The officer present confirmed that that wasn't an option, as the internal layout would need to be redesigned accordingly. So the ground floor plans now seem to have been switched around north to south, and the current planning statement says, "You will make note to the removal of all doors and windows within the south elevation, which will prevent any new openings being formed within this elevation, therefore not changing the existing appearance of the south elevation, and not causing detrimental impact to neighbours." But then the planning statement goes on to explain that there will be a door. The planning statement also notes that security lighting is deemed necessary for the other external doors. The south elevation drawings now show that the original ground floor windows have been removed, but the door remains, and also 5 roof lights in the southern roof slope, a group of 4 and a single. So the Parish Council believes that an opportunity has been missed to more fully redesign, reconfigure and reconsider this building to accord with this committee's original reason for refusal. This should be a building of good design which respects and enhances the conservation area. The Parish Council argues that this current application doesn't yet achieve this on either count, and so requests the councillors to again refuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Do we have any questions from councillors? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for your contribution. And we have one speaker down to speak in support, Simon Woodman, if you'd like to approach. Welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, press the button on your right, you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman. My name is Simon Woodman and I own Nunnery House and the barn we're discussing today. Since the last committee meeting, we worked closely with Gemma and the Basingstoke Council and offered multiple revisions to ensure we create a solution that answers and resolves all the concerns raised. The main concerns raised were access and potential damage to tree roots. There will be no change to the existing access, which has been in place for over 20 years and is made from compressed scalpings. The plan is to gravel on top of this and therefore no damage will occur to the roots of the trees. In addition, we have a tree report commissioned to assess any impact to the trees which have been submitted with the plans. In terms of light pollution, all external lights will be low lumen down, all internal lights will be low lumen down lighting to avoid light spillage. In addition, electronic blackout block screens will be fitted to all fixed light wells in the roof. On the ground floor, we'll have floor-to-ceiling blinds and curtains. This will dramatically reduce, if not eliminate, any light spillage. In addition, we have removed all outstanding outside lights, except for 2 low-emission down lights with motion sensors at the front door for safety. In terms of overlooking, all ground floor windows have been removed from the west and south elevations, and therefore the view from the neighbours' properties will be unchanged from what it is today. We have minimised the roof wells which are fixed, and due to the angle of the roof, as it's very shallow, will make it impossible to view the neighbours' houses from the southern and west elevations. We have kept the back door, which will be a solid door and complement the cladding of the barn. This is for access to the coat and boot room. All windows are now north and east facing where there are no houses. In terms of the visual qualities, all materials will match the existing barn in both look, size and virtue. Externally, there will be no change to the view from any neighbours from the west and south elevations. Our goal is to enhance the appearance by bringing the barn back to a presentable state and clear the years of accumulated items. The only exception will be the removal of the asbestos roof and replaced with the same cladding as the walls. Our goal is to build a house for my wife and I. We have reduced the internal bedrooms to 2 as we now live on our own, and anything larger is not required. We've lived in the village for the last 10 years. My wife grew up in Maplesdale and up Nately all her childhood and for the last 10 years. So should you agree with the development, this would give us an ideal house for us to retire in. I hope I've answered all the concerns raised by the committee at the last meeting. I would like to reiterate that we have taken on board all comments, and we believe in conjunction with Gemma and her team, we have produced a solution that addresses and answers all concerns raised. In essence, the barn from our neighbours' perspective will not change, and in fact will be enhanced. I'm now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Do we have any questions, councillors? It appears not. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thanks. Councillors, do we have any questions for officers? Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Chair. What distances are we talking about between the barn and the lady who spoke in terms of her being able to view the barn?
Thank you. The report clarifies that Yew Tree Cottage, which I believe is the property in question, is some 25.7 metres to the south on the opposite side of Tunworth Road.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll throw it open for debate. Anyone wish to move? Councillor House, are up.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's not unreasonable to still have concerns on the part of residents, but I think the reasons brought up aren't necessarily strong enough for us to go against the officer's recommendation. I think at that distance and with the adaptations that have been made since the last application, I think I'm personally happy to approve this. So I'll happily move the officer's recommendation.
Okay, we have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Freeman. Okay, I will move to vote. Those in favour, please show. 2, 3, everyone except me. And I'm abstaining. Okay, if we could have the decision, please.
Thank you. That application is approved, subject to the conditions listed on page 119 to 123 of the main agenda. Thank you.
Okay, next item number 4, Cricket Pavilion, Bourne Meadow, St Mary Bourne. If I can have the officer introduced, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4 is in relation to the Cricket Pavilion at Bourne Meadow, St Mary Bourne, and the proposals for a change of use from Cricket Pavilion Class F2 to Mixed Use Cricket Pavilion and Children's Nursery Class F2 and E bracket F. There has been a couple of updates in relation to this application. These relate to a letter of support received from the Childcare Development Officer at Hampshire County Council. We've also received some supplementary information from the owner of the nursery in support of the application. We've received 2 further comments from members of the public supporting the application, whilst we've received 1 further comment objecting to the application. In terms of the other updates, it's also noted that a green storage container is located within the wider site. It's outside of the red line of the application, does not form part of the current proposals. However, this would potentially need planning permission, and the following informative is suggested as per the update to ensure that this is carried out. Comments have also been raised in relation to fencing, and whilst the fence itself does not need planning permission, there's a small section of enclosure of amenity space adjacent to the pavilion that's used by the nursery, which did not form part of that original red line. We have now received updated amended red plans, which should be on the PowerPoint. That small section that you can see, sort of rectangular shape below the building. We have now carried out a reconsultation on this, so the recommendation needs to be amended to reflect this, and that's as follows. It is recommended that following the expiry of the reconsultation period and no new objections not previously considered, the application be approved subject to the conditions listed at the end of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't appear to have anybody down to speak on this one, so I'll throw it over to councillors. Any questions for officers? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, debate. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I think this one sort of comes to the fore in today's world where nursery spaces are at an absolute premium, no matter where you are and where you live. And I think from what I read in the report and the update, generally the local community are in favour of this. The cricket club is quite happy to expand the current sharing arrangement, and I think it will bring benefits to the local communities, and that's what it's all about, and it's best use of space. I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Okay, so we have a mover seconded by Councillor Robinson. Nobody else wished to speak, so in that case we'll move to vote. Those in favour, please show. And I think that's unanimous. So, Brian, if we could have the decision, please.
Yes, it's confirmed that the application is to be approved in line with the updated recommendation providing the update today.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on. Item number 5, Overton Methodist Church. Gemma, if we could have you introduce, please.
Thank you. Item 5 seeks planning permission for the change of use from a church to a children's day nursery and the demolition of an existing corrugated iron extension to the rear of the building to provide a garden area at Overton Methodist Church. The site is located within the Overton Conservation Area, which is a designated heritage asset. And both the existing church and the extension, which is proposed to be demolished, are identified as notable buildings within the Overton Conservation Area. As such, the existing building is considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. By way of update, officers have provided some further clarification on the policy considerations for both designated and non-designated heritage assets. That is just as a result of some of the discussions at the site viewing panel. And just by way of summary, both policy EM11 of the local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework give consideration to the protection of both designated and non-designated heritage assets. The update paper also provides a summary of the site viewing panel. At the site viewing panel, the applicant did make reference to the need to maintain public access to the existing burial ground at the rear of the site, and clarification has been sought on the location of the existing gate. A plan has been included within the visualiser which shows its approximate location. As observed on site, that the gate is not visible at present due to overgrown vegetation, but it would be reinstated, and the existing burial ground would remain unaffected by the proposals before us tonight. The application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed within the main papers. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. And just to add, we viewed that site on Friday as well. Don't have anyone from the parish council, but I have Brian Langer down speaking objection. If you'd like to approach. So, welcome to Development Control. If you push the button on the right, when you're ready to speak, you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Brian Langer. I am objecting solely because my original stance as neutral would have precluded me from speaking tonight. Our property has a common boundary with the church for 3/4 of the church's plot's northern boundary. We have no objection to the change of use per se, as the church's fabric is deteriorating, especially the dilapidated corrugated iron extension. Our main concern is how users of the nursery would impact on parking in Points Road and Winchester Street. Firstly, Points Road has unrestricted parking except for a double yellow line area close to Red Lion Lane. It already is used by High Street residents who have no off-street parking. I would ask that a condition is imposed that staff of the nursery use the Overton Hill car park, which has been Overton Parish Council's preference for all shop and service staff, thereby freeing up parking in the village for actual shop and service users. I would ask that a condition is imposed that all reconstruction-related vehicles and equipment are housed only on the church's forecourt, as access from Points Road is only via a well-used public footpath. But seek a condition that no frosted glass is replaced by plain glass from the church to ensure continuity of privacy for our property. I would seek agreement that Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council would review parking after 6 months of nursery use. I disagree with Overton Parish Council's comment in their submission about a residents' parking scheme in Points Road, as no survey of residents has taken place. That is purely their view and not the view of the residents at the present time. I also question the County Council's highway officer's comments, which are this is unlikely to result in any parking issues in vicinity of the site. I do wonder whether he's ever ventured out of Winchester and visited Overton to judge the parking that we have to contend with at the moment. And finally, as far as I'm aware, the applicant has made no attempt to contact us since the application was submitted in June of last year. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Langer, councillors? I don't see any hand raised. Thank you very much for your contribution. And speaking in support, Gary Dennis, if you'd like to approach. Welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, push the button on the right. You'll have 4 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for considering my and my wife's company's application to establish a new nursery for the residents of Overton. Firstly, please accept Alison's apology for not being able to attend tonight. She is currently helping a nursery in Bristol, which is awaiting the start of a new manager. Allow me a moment to reaffirm why we firmly believe that this nursery will significantly benefit the people of Overton. With a background spanning over 16 years in childcare, myself and my wife recognise the paramount importance of providing children and parents access to high-quality childcare services. While Overton currently boasts an eclectic mix of childcare, including brilliant childminders and term-time nurseries, it lacks a full-time nursery. For Overton residents seeking year-round nursery services for their children or wanting employment in a year-round nursery, the current absence of such facilities limits their choices and forces for them to look beyond Overton. This need is supported by Hampshire Child Services. From April 2024, parents of children aged 24 months and above will have the option of enrolling their children in a nursery with government funding up to 15 hours a week. In September 2025, this will increase to 30 hours per week, and children aged 9 months and above will be eligible. For parents who wish to use these funded hours all year, they will be able to claim 20 hours a week, or what is usually 2 full days of childcare. Currently, there is no nursery or preschool in Overton that fulfills this requirement year-round. Our objective is to empower every parent with the option of utilising a local nursery, a nursery open year-round and deeply integrated into the community. We envision a nursery in Overton for Overton. In 2023, our nursery in Week, Winchester, was shortlisted nationally for Community Nursery of the Year, showcasing our commitment to community integration through visits to local retirement homes and events. We want to build a nursery which facilitates connections among local parents. We aim to bring this ethos to Overton, providing its residents with the choice of a local community-based nursery. Our nursery at Finkley Down Farm received an outstanding grade in our last Ofsted inspection in 2023. The report highlighted our crystal clear educational goals, deep understanding of families, and our commitment to fostering children's independence, creativity, and critical thinking. We aspire to replicate this success in Overton by hiring local staff who share our values. We seek to offer year-round employment opportunities to childcare to the people of Overton, fostering a vibrant and sustainable local workforce. Transforming the main church building, which has been a part of Overton since 1842, into a nursery is a unique opportunity. This building, with 182 years of service to the community, can continue its legacy by serving the evolving needs of the residents. Having thoroughly reviewed the planning considerations presented to this committee and acknowledging the concerns raised, particularly regarding the demolition of the rear structure and parking issues, we appreciate the positive, valuable input from highways and the planning officers. We are pleased to note that the application is now recommended for approval. As per our design and access statement, in regards to parking concerns of the Poyns Road residents, we will ensure and prevent all staff from parking unless having permission from a resident. I sincerely hope that the committee will align with the recommendation to approve this application, recognising the positive impact it promises to bring to the people of Overton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions for Mr Dennis? Councillor Faulkner.
Yeah, hello. I was one of the councillors on the visit. Clearly, the one big issue is parking and access. How will it work? I'm not familiar with nurseries. I didn't have them in my day. How many parents will be dropping off children, and how do they do it? I.e., do they have to park and take the child inside and settle them down, or do they just open the door and toss them out and they wander in themselves?
Kind of a mixture of both. The way we run our nurseries is we don't allow our parents into the actual nursery once the child is settled. So effectively, the child is brought to the front door and, for want of a better phrase, left with us. So that's basically, I mean, obviously, when parents are dropping off, it's usually at the start of the day, so they're usually on their way to work, so they try and, make sure their children are settled, but they want to leave as quickly as possible. And at the end of the day, again, they want to pick their children up as quickly as possible. And we have various electronic means of passing messages on to parents so that if they don't need to have a chat with us, they can just basically pick their child up and go, but they'll still know how their child has been with us all day.
Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Chair. What will be the capacity of the nursery, and do you see it going up during your tenure?
Sorry, do you want me to say it again? There's a condition that says it won't be able to go above 50 children.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Hello again, Mr Dennis.
Hello.
Could you tell me what the start time is of the opening of the nursery and the end time, please?
Our current nurseries mainly run from 8 till 6. However, we do offer a morning drop-off kind of early club, which starts at about 7:30, which parents can take up optionally. However, nurseries aren't like schools, whereby there is a set time for them to turn up and must be picked up by. So it's usually kind of spread out, gap, as it were, that they turn up. So it's not everyone's there at once. It's spread over quite a period of time.
Thank you.
Councillor Hussey.
Mr Langer raised concerns about parking in terms of staff. How many staff would you employ, and how do you envisage they would park their cars? Within the premises or on the street?
No, effectively, there's a couple of things we put in our design statement. Is firstly, if we're able to, we would offer a kind of shared driveway scheme, which is becoming more and more popular, where people can use existing parking, people's driveways. We've also got the local car parks, which never full during the day in Overton whatsoever. And effectively, like I put in my design statement, we want to integrate into the community. So the last thing we want is to cause any problems. So because it would reputationally affect us, we would effectively tell our staff that they can't, unless they've got permission from a resident, park in Points Road. Because it's just, we don't want to be that nursery. We want to be part of the community and actually, be something that people want to use, not disliked because we're blocking roads at the back. So we won't let our staff park there at all.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor House-Sorrell?
Thank you, Chair. The previous speaker talked about frosted glass. Is that going to remain in place, any existing for the continued privacy?
And at the moment, I've got no desire to change that frosted glass whatsoever. There's no benefit to me, and if it's going to affect Mr. Langer next door, there's no reason why I'd want to change it. So.
Okay, there being no more questions. Thank you very much for your contribution, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you.
And Councillor Karen Watts, if you'd like to approach. Welcome to DC, and when you're ready, you've got 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I would just like to speak on behalf of all the ward councillors for Whitchurch, Overton and Laverstoke to express our support for this application for a day nursery on the site of the Methodist Church in Overton. And we understand that it's also the seller's preferred option for this site. We believe the provision would be a good for the community, as there is currently nothing, as Gary said, there's currently nothing equivalent in Overton. This would be a 51 week a year even, covering the hours needed for working parents, and all the other playgroups all run on term time only and only run during school hours. In supporting this application, we also recognise that all the concerns raised by the residents in Points Gardens. However, we believe this won't be an issue. We understand that Mr. Dennis is advising staff that they must not park in Points, as he said earlier, and also that there is, as he said, car parking up in Overton Hill and just off of London Road where they would be able to park. And also, if there is an issue, both myself and the other councillors would be happy to mediate, if needed, with the nursery to resolve any issues. On balance, we believe this is the best use for this building. It will secure the plot for the community benefit and the infrastructure for the future, preventing it from falling into disrepair. And that is really all I have to say on it. Gary and Mr. Dennis has expressed everything else that I would have said. So, thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any questions for Councillor Watts? Do we have any questions? No? Okay, you get away lightly then. Thank you very much for your contribution. Councillors, do we have any questions for officers? Councillor Miller, I see your hand. No? Okay. Any questions for officers? Okay, then we'll move on to debate. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. It seems to generally have popular support, but we've been asked for 3 conditions. One is the frosted glass condition, which I'm sure we can include that, and it seems reasonable. The other two refer to parking. The construction vehicles, we can cover that in the construction method statement, so that can be dealt with that way. Over the staff parking, I don't think that's a condition we've got the power to enforce, because if the staff wish to park on the road, they can, they're perfectly entitled to, so it really is a matter between the employer and the staff member. So subject to putting the frosted glass condition in, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not here to second this. I'm here to contribute to the debate, because when we went on the viewing panel, even the van that we went in, or the mobile, the little coach, had to park in one of the car parks. It could not stop. It was 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. Yes, we weren't there first thing, but there was no parking on that road. Nothing. I think Overton well enough to know I've never seen it half empty. Maybe it is very early in the mornings. But my main concern is that, and I fully agree with the necessity of the principle of having the nursery there. Don't get me wrong. It's this parking issue. Overton has continually had a parking issue and a traffic issue for decades. It's because of it's an old village, and the intensity of modern traffic causes a real problem in Overton. I'm very concerned. I was very concerned about a comment from the applicant about asking residents, "Oh, can I use your driveway?" There aren't any. I've never come across that, and I think it's the cheek of the devil to ask somebody if I can use their driveway to park. We all have an issue, and I certainly have in my ward, when people don't bother to ask residents that they can use their driveway and just park across them willy-nilly. So I think that's a very dangerous way to go. If there's parking spaces in the car parks, that's what the conditions should read. I have to admire Mr. Langer's presentation, because I think he came up with some very sensible and sound ideas. It doesn't preclude the operation of the nursery in one little bit. It does ask people to walk a short way. I'm familiar with the car parks in Overton. And that's where I have the sensitivity on this. If there's a condition in there along the lines of Mr. Langer's suggestions, I see no reason why it can't be included. Officers might be slightly different in their view, but it's going to cause chaos on that road, especially if it's spread out during the day. It might have been slightly better managed if they came at certain times, and then that's a managed thing, but as schools are. But I have great concerns over the parking issue. I can't accept this. I will not vote for this in the present form unless we can get a condition on this parking, or certainly strong and informative maybe, but something in writing with any kind of approval that's made on this application.
Okay, I think we've got a suggestion from the officers on that.
Thank you. The concerns raised are completely valid. I think it is up to the committee to decide whether a planning condition would alleviate those concerns. I do think there's potentially scope to include a condition which would require the submission of a travel plan, and that could set out details of how the facility would manage and facilitate parking for staff. And that's up to the committee to decide whether they would like to see that imposed.
Yes, Councillor Miller.
Chair, that sounds like an eminently sensible approach, that the travel plan can go into detail about the exact wording, and I'm more than willing to support that, because I think that, and I can't speak for everybody on the committee, but we certainly got the feeling, and we had discussions within the bus, that the parking was going to be the thorny issue when it came to this particular application. So that would be a very welcome approach. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. I think we'll go with that. Councillor Court, you had your hand raised.
Just really to support what Councillor Miller was saying. I know the area well, and that is particularly difficult to park around there. I have been the wrong end of parking problems in the past around there, so I completely support the idea of a travel plan.
Okay, we don't have a seconder yet. Councillor Faulkner?
Yeah, I would support everything that's been said. It suddenly struck me that one of the problems of Overton is we've put hundreds of houses there over the last few years, so it would be a bit silly to deny them nursery facilities for all the houses and people we've put there.
Absolutely.
Does that mean you're seconding?
Happy to.
Excellent. Okay, I guess there's no other contributions to be had, so we'll move to vote. Those in favour, please show. Yeah, subject to the travel plan, and I believe that's unanimous. If we could have the... Oh, that includes the condition to retain the frosted glass as well, apparently. So if we could have the decision read out, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. The application is approved subject to the conditions listed in the main agenda, in addition to a condition which secures the submission of a travel plan and the retention of the frosted windows to remain in that condition. Thank you.
Excellent. So we now move on to item number 6, which is 65 Normanton Road. So if Brian, if you'd like to introduce that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 6 relates to an application at 65 Normanton Road in Basingstoke. The proposal is for a part single and part two-storey rear extension. There are no updates on this application. It is recommended the application be approved subject to the conditions listed at the end of the report in the main agenda.
Thank you very much. Now, I have 4 people down to speak in objection. Mr. Pupinder Katur, Miss Navinda Katur, Miss Jean Hughes, and Miss Angela Nicholas. If you all want to speak, you'll have to divvy up the 4 minutes between you, but you're all welcome to approach. We've got 4 chairs set out for you if you'd like to speak. Yeah. Okay, but fine. If you'd like to approach, that'd be great. Thanks. So, welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, push the button on the right and you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you. Your mic's not on. You push the button, the red light will come on. Silver button.
Oh, okay.
That's it, you're
Okay,
on now.
Okay. I just want to say I've come on the behalf of the residents who couldn't appear tonight regarding this application. Just want to make you aware, these are, as it's a row of terraced houses, the applicant, this particular house, is an end terrace. And apart from this particular application, and if you look at the whole terraces, the house and on the end, all the other residents are in their 60s, they're in their 70s, and they're in their 80s. So one person couldn't attend because he was feeling infirm tonight, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to summarize some basic things and what they've said. Obviously one of the biggest problems they have is the upper level extension. The upper level extension, they are concerned with the block of light to the rear living room, especially people who are directly adjacent to the property, and they feel it's overshadowing, it's overbearing, and people feel who want to live there may be suffering from anxiety, depression, and so forth. And it seems to be a theme that's been repeated by a lot of the residents here. We have residents in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and some of them have been there for 2 decades now. So, they're in their senior years now. One of the problems they're also concerned about is this extension, as far as we could see in the whole of the neighbourhood, especially the upper level extension, we can't see any other building that is extended that much on the second floor. It's going way outside the outline of the building. So we have a combination here of a first level extension with a pitch, it's a 10-meter extension, and the pitch roof is going directly below the bedroom on the second floor. Now that's quite a pitch for quite a distance. This immediately creates a shadow on the house immediately adjacent to that. And they're worried about their mental health. The second floor extension, which is completely out of character with the whole neighborhood, and we can't see any other application like this. It's going to block the daylight, view in the morning. Some residents have said for their mental health, when they sit in the garden, everything's fine, but this huge second floor extension. So they feel really unhappy about it in the senior years. The other sort of main consideration has come up is that whether this particular property in the future would be used for business use. Now, the way the terrace is arranged is, it's in a courtyard. So opposite the terrace is just a courtyard, which is overshadowed by trees. The rear, there's like a bit of foreground, grassy foreground. So it's surrounded by trees on the left, on the right, and the front. So they're concerned about the daylight issue there. But the main thing they're concerned also about is that some of them felt the downside extension was too long. You know, they're open to it, but they thought the pitch of the roof was a big problem. But the other main thing was they were concerned that in the future, this building may be used for business use.
Okay, you got 1 minute left.
Right, okay. So they're concerned with the car parking issues. There's only one car park there. They're also worried that it may create a precedence. It's going to change the character of the neighborhood. So if they do it, somebody else can come along. We want to do it also, and it'll just open the doors. And we cannot see any other building that's like this. We also can't see the purpose of it, to be honest. It's a 4-bedroom house already, outbuilding. They want an extension. What the purpose is for a family of 4, parents, 2 children, that's it. We can't understand what the reason for it is. Residents are disappointed that it was recommended for approval because they feel their viewpoint is being disregarded, considering their age and
Okay, we're afraid we're out of time.
Okay.
Councillors, do you have any questions? See no hands raised. And thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I have a Mr. Balbit Dunjol here speaking in support, if you'd like to approach. So, welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, if you push the button on your right, and the red light comes on, you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. I speak on behalf of the applicant. The proposal is for a single-story rear extension and part 2-story extension. The single-story extension is within the permitted development guidelines, and the previous permitted development approval has been given for that. The part first floor extension has been set away from the adjoining house number 64 and is in line with the existing end gable wall of the terrace. There has been numerous objections to the proposal which we have addressed. The proposed works are within the local and the national planning guidelines for enlargement of residential properties. Consideration has been given of not overshadowing adjoining property and well within the 45-degree sight line from the edge of the adjoining first floor window. The planning guidelines stipulates that all new extensions to be subordinate to the existing house, materials to match existing, and the first floor extension not to exceed 3 meters in depth. The proposed first floor extension roof is lower, which is subordinate to the main roof, and the depth of 3 meters is within the guidelines. The proposal for this property is to remain a single dwelling for the applicant who have been living here for the past 17 years. Some rumors have been said in the objection that the client is proposing to turn this into a flat, HMO, or a nursery. The application is for a residential house and not for any business. I can only stress that the applicants want to make this as their ever home. As additional parking, yes, there is an issue of parking spaces as many residents now have more than one car. For the applicants, there is only one car in the house, and they will also have to use the available spaces as first come, first serve. The applicant has got no objection or any conditions to be attached to the planning. Finally, I concur with the planning officer's recommendation for the approval to be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr Dungill? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. The first speaker mentioned that this was the only, or it would be if this application is approved, the only first floor extension in the row of terraces.
Currently,
is
yes.
that confirmed?
Currently, yes. But there has been this guideline set for throughout the borough. There are other properties within the borough. But currently on this estate, this will be the first one.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, Mr Dungill, thank you very much for your contribution. Could you switch the mic off?
Sorry, I thought I did.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Questions for officers? Any questions, councillors? Nice. Councillor Hussey.
Could the officers confirm on the block plan or the location plan, either, that the top of the drawing is north?
Thank you. Same thing. Same problem.
Where it says block plan, or when it says location plan now, is that north?
Apologies, yeah, that's looking north.
So the top of the page is north?
Top of the page is north.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Looking at the plans on page 178, it shows the extent of the extension as being 3 metres. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct at both ground and first floor level.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, debate. Councillor Howard-Sorrell.
Thank you, Chair. My big concern with this going in was light, but actually, based on the north compared to the two diagrams we had, one of them there was a concern. The actual north there doesn't seem to be a concern about light. You'll maybe lose a little bit for a very short period of the day, but since the garden is north facing anyway and almost northwest facing, I don't think it's a huge factor for the neighbours. I can understand that it might be a concern, but I just think the reality is going to be so minimally invasive to their garden that it's not something that we could refuse on. Other than that, I'm fairly happy with it as an application. I think it's fine. I don't think it's too imposing. I don't think it's an issue if it does set a precedent for other people, because people might want to extend. So if it does, that's fine. So yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Are you moving? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, it's back to the question, Chair, that I made to the agent. In my own ward, when we get applications to the parish council, you advise them, is it going to upset the street scene? Is it going to be a disturbance in long-established properties? And invariably, if you get one out of a row of, as I say, established properties, the answer is no, because it's disrupting the whole thing. Now, Councillor Howard-Sorrell is quite correct in saying it would set a precedent, because you set this one up, and you could see it appearing all round, all down that particular terrace. Now, is that what we want? The needs of the personal needs of a residential extension aren't planning matters, but the establishment of a precedence is, and I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with it on that basis. As was said, the first floor could be permitted development, but that is now. I don't think light comes into it because of the orientation, which is now established, but I am not comfortable with that second floor extension, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. The two-storey part of it, they've kept it away from the adjoining house, so it doesn't become overbearing. It is subservient. It's at the rear of the house. There's no increase in overlooking. We've already dealt with the light issue because of the orientation of the house, and the business use isn't part of the application and can't be considered. I cannot see a single reason that will stand up in planning law to refuse this. So I will second Councillor Howard Sorrell's motion. Thank you.
I don't think Councillor Howard Sorrell moved it, so are you happy to move?
In that case, I will move it. Thank you.
And Councillor Bound?
Well, I would second it then, Chair. Councillor Robinson said everything I was going to say.
Okay, we have a live proposal, moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. 2 abstentions. Okay, if we could have the decision, please.
The application is to be approved subject to the conditions listed at the end of the report in the main agenda.
Thank you very much, which brings us on to item number 7, 104 Worthing Road. And Ryan, if you could introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 7 is an application at number 104 Worthing Road in Basingstoke. The proposal is for a change of use from HMO Class C4 to supported accommodation comprising 7 bedrooms with staff office Class C2. In terms of updates, we have an update with regard to some information provided by the applicant firm that the maximum stay for any resident would be 18 months. We've also had an amendment to condition 3 in terms of the wording so as it can be more specific to the site and the occupiers. This adds on a reference to referrals from statutory authorities support needs. Apologies. That has then meant that we've had to add an additional point to condition 5 for the management and operation plan for these statutory authorities to be confirmed. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions listed at the end of the main report and within the update report.
Thank you very much. Now I have 5 people down here to speak to object, and I'm afraid you'll only have 4 minutes between the 5 of you. Right. Okay, only one. So that is you're Mr. Carnell, right? Okay, right. Yeah, if you'd like to approach the table on the right, that'd be great. So, welcome to Development Control. When you press the button right and the red light's on, you'll have 4 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair and members. I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Nicholas Crowe and Miss Joanna Ali, who are here today, but have decided that I will speak on their behalf. I lived in this immediate area for 30 years, probably the oldest resident in this zone of housing, so I know the area well. An application to change this residence from a dwelling house to an HMO was made in February 2009, and this committee refused that application. The applicant was required to return the house to a dwelling house, which he did not do. In April 2023, this committee issued a notice of lawfulness. Because a previous owner claimed to have operated the property as an HMO from 2009 to 2020, contrary to planning regulations, this committee issued a notice granting immunity from planning enforcement. From 2020 until 2024, the property had in fact returned to a dwelling house status. The previous owner did indicate that the HMO operation had finished in 2020. This property has never received planning consent for a change of use from a dwelling house to an HMO. The council has merely allowed the owner to operate it in that way without sanctions. Two matters arise. This current application should be disallowed as a change of use from C4 to C2 is not consistent with the current property designation as a dwelling house. And if planning officers and this planning committee decided in 2009 that a change of use from dwelling house to HMO was unacceptable, why are the officers now recommending an even further departure away from a dwelling house by recommending a change to C2, which has a commercial aspect to it as well? And on the matter of community considerations, reading the officers' planning report, it is clear the officers acknowledge the concern of the local community and have recommended a number of provisions to be attached to the approval should it be given, in an attempt to provide some assurances regarding the operation of this facility. These include supervision, management and communication. So the officers do foresee potential community issues. And what happens if the applicant does not adhere to these planning provisions? And what happens if these provisions prove insufficient to adequately manage this facility?
1 minute left.
Who will monitor compliance? And what enforcement action will be available? What can be done if this social experiment goes wrong? It's the local community that pays the price. And I'd add as a final note that the facility and its aims, I think, are fully supported by the local community. The concern is the location of this property and whether or not it is the right type of property for this operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Carnell? Councillor Robinson?
Could you just clarify something that you said, that it hasn't been used as an HMO continuously over the last few years? Could you just actually clarify exactly when it stopped being used as an HMO against the that it didn't have planning permission for, and when it restarted as an HMO, if it has restarted as an HMO?
In the paperwork associated with the with the notice of lawfulness, you will find that the officers accepted some very informal notes from previous owners in terms of how the property had been used. And the most telling one was a confirmation from an owner that it was only used as an HMO, albeit against the regulations, from 2009 to 2020. There's no evidence at all that the property was used as an HMO after 2020.
Any further questions, Mr. Carnell? I see no hands raised. Thank you very much for your contribution. And I have down to speak in support Andy Wells and Trevor Pickup. Welcome to Development Control. When you're ready, press the buttons on your right and you have 4 minutes between you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear councillors, the Society of St James is a well-respected local charity that has successfully been helping vulnerable people get their lives back together and stay safer and healthier for over 50 years. Oh, you can't hear me? Yep. No problem. I'll speak up as well. SSJ works very closely with local and statutory authorities to provide a safe, structured and substance-free environment. Individuals are supported to take responsibility for their own health and well-being. SSJ has a successful model with a very good reputation for turning people's lives around and enabling them to maintain this positive change, with favourable feedback from Gosport, Southampton and Portsmouth local authorities. The aim is to support individuals that have suffered significant trauma and subsequently made poor choices get their lives back in order, so they can once again make a positive contribution to society. This is achieved via supported housing, through which appropriate mandatory training and activities are delivered. Most individuals supported by SSJ need help as a result of substance misuse and associated behaviour. Sadly, there's a desperate need in the Basingstoke area, as highlighted by the Probation Service, Police and Basingstoke Social Inclusion Partnership. A member of the police is actually with us this evening. Having staff on site enables a dedicated team to provide comprehensive support, addressing a range of mental, physical and substance abuse challenges and money management. In their other properties, the applicant has found a staff presence increases residents' engagement with the activities provided, and therefore residents are better supported and able to move into independent accommodation sooner. The location of the property, close to the college and other services and facilities, enables residents to access training courses to learn new skills, supporting their journey towards independence, which is the applicant's aim and their definition of success. As advised by ward councillors, SSJ has carried out extensive consultation with the local community. This includes direct contact with local residents, 2 public consultation events at the Brookvale Community Centre, and an open day was held at the property. The concerns of local residents were addressed at these events, and people appreciate it is better to have a staff presence on site than not. It is not in residents' interest to engage in antisocial behaviour or illicit substances, as this will jeopardise their accommodation and immediate intervention from the police. Before any individuals are admitted, they are fully vetted and required to prove their motivation and commitment. Thus, they are already self-motivated. And together with SSJ's support, this is backed up with regular visits from authorities, including the police. Residents are monitored, and SSJ and police have given neighbours direct contact details in case of an emergency. The service run by SSJ in Gosport and elsewhere in Hampshire has demonstrated a positive impact on the wider community. The increased police presence means the opportunity for any criminal or antisocial behaviour is reduced. Local residents are safer and feel safer too. SSJ has also found that residents of their accommodation are keen to contribute to the local community. This helps their own well-being and restores their place in society. This contributes to community cohesion, bringing people together to look out for each other and care for the area. As a result, material considerations in favour of the application clearly outweigh those against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bound, followed by Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I think that the aims of your movement are laudable. We've got a condition 5 update on our in front of us for this evening, and it says to those with connections to Basingstoke and Dean. Can you define that a little bit for me? And does that mean that you would not be bringing in people from elsewhere, say within the county?
Yeah, there is already a significant need. I think you probably know even better than me, but I think there's about 70 people, if not even more, that need this type of help in the Basingstoke area. Currently, as many as possible are accommodated in other provision outside, so in Hampshire, but outside, so in Gosport, Portsmouth and Southampton.
Yeah, so we currently run houses in the south of the county, and we're getting requests from Basingstoke area to accommodate people from here. So we are opening a house up, or plan to open a house in Basingstoke because that's where the local need is.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. It's along the same lines, reading this rewritten condition. You mentioned, I think I heard you, honestly, it's very, very difficult to hear what you said in the presentation over here. You mentioned the SIP, the Social Inclusion Partnership. Now, the one thing that's not mentioned in here, and it's, I think, in the relation to Basingstoke and Dean, it's the housing department here has got a very close eye on homelessness, especially, and that's an interest to every single councillor here, and it's mentioned in this condition. Can you assure us that the whole system will be logged in with the housing department here, because that's our focal point in getting the right people into the right kind of accommodation?
Yeah, so we're creating extra accommodation by opening up 7 units. We're going to be taking referrals predominantly from the police and the probation service for people who won't have alternative accommodation available to them. And we'll be happy to work, keen to work in partnership with the local authority. We think we'll take pressure off the housing department to find accommodation for people.
Yep, Councillor Miller.
That was exactly what I wanted you to hear, is that, okay, probation department and police department, but I think it's essential, knowing as I have over the years as a councillor, it's essential you liaise with our housing department, because they often see things that maybe those two other authorities don't, that actually relate to your accommodation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, was there a question in there?
In the last one, no, but the question, I did ask the question in the first part. There was the clarification for the second part. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Mr. Pickup or Mr. Wells? Okay, thank you both for your contributions. Councillors, do we have any questions for officers? Councillor Hussey, followed by Councillor Robinson.
I'd just like some information from the officers, some clarification about the status of the HMO.
Yes, absolutely.
In the light of what Mr. Carnell said, that effectively it didn't operate from 2020 to whenever as an HMO, does that have any significance? As a certificate of lawfulness was approved in June of last year. So legally it is an HMO. Is that the position that we take?
Yes, in simple terms, yeah, the certificate of lawfulness was granted that more than 10 years was demonstrated that it was in use as a HMO, and that was the position taken in June 2023.
Thank you.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hussey's asked exactly the same question. So.
Okay, any further questions, councillors? Okay, I shall throw it open to debate. Anyone want to lead? Councillor Howard Sorrell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure you can all imagine I've had some contact from residents on this. I also had a meeting with my fellow ward councillors with a representative from the Society of St James last year, talking us through the scheme. I think it's changed slightly since then, but the broad strokes are still there. By and large, I'm in support of this, but given the number of residents' concerns that have been raised with me, I'm not convinced it's something I can support based on that. I will probably abstain. I don't feel I'm predetermined, but I'm certainly predisposed to support my residents in having this not go forward. That being said, I won't hold it against any councillors that vote in favour, because I don't think there are any planning reasons that it can be refused on. That's all I have to say. So good luck, everybody.
Councillor Bounds.
Thank you, Chair. I'm broadly in agreement with this planning application. I can well understand the concerns of local people. I think it's probably as much a fear of the unknown. I mean, it's something new which is going to be happening. I mean, it lays it on the line within the report the sorts of people that will be accommodated in this particular facility, but it is something which is needed by Basingstoke and Dean, as I understand it. So I have no trouble in supporting the application.
Are you moving the recommendation? Okay. And Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second it. I think there's a reduction in the number of residents there. There will be management there. There will be a lot more monitoring of what goes on there than there is now. An HMO requires no monitoring whatsoever. This is going to be monitored, so I think this could, if run properly, actually improve the situation for the local residents rather than be a detriment. So I'm happy to second it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a live proposal, moved and seconded. Does anyone else want to say anything before we move to votes? Okay, then we shall move to vote. Those in favour of the recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8, so I think that's carried. Those against, please show. And those abstaining, please show. That's 2. Okay, so if we could have the decision, please.
The application be approved subject to the conditions listed at the end of the report on the main agenda and the conditions in the update report.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending the planning sessions. We have one last item of business, which is the quarterly planning appeals report. So if we could have the officer introduction, please.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is, as you say, just the quarterly appeals report. There's nothing really to bring to your attention, and it's just for members to note.
Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I ask the officers, that have they got any more comment to make about the Washwater appeal and the decision by the inspector that seems to be a cause for comment?
Don't believe they do, because it's still...
Public meeting, Councillor.
Okay, I just asked the question.
Okay, so officers unable to comment. Any other questions? Okay, are we happy to note the report? Noted. Okay. Right. I think that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for your attendance. Meeting closed.